Hello, hello. We're all back together again. I love this.
I love this so much. I have a funny story that I just caught myself doing that I have to embarrassingly share with you guys.
Yeah, we love embarrassing stories.
And I love sharing my embarrassing stories, so this is perfect. But I just became like a real life meme in the most embarrassing of ways, and I caught myself mid meme. But if you've ever seen those like videos on Instagram of like husbands creeping in the background when they're like, they don't care about our show. Like they don't want to watch The Bachelorette or
Yeah,
Bridgerton or whatever,
like
but they're
trashing
like,
They're just like
Bravo, whatever.
slowly sleep. Yeah, sleep
yeah,
through the back.
they're like just happen to be around and peeking through. Well, I just caught myself doing that. It's summer, so my daughter's watching like Disney shows, and I was getting lunch, and I'm just like all of a sudden invested in what happens in this Disney show. And
Fully
I was
invested.
lurking. I was totally lurking.
Yeah, I like it. I, d- I don't do that so much with my husband the other way because there's too much like blood and guts and script. Like he likes that I
Yeah.
can't do it. I can't do it. I have to
Yeah.
have
My,
You know
calm,
what? Me
peaceful.
neither. He was like, I just remembered how good Law and Order is. And I just restarted like I don't think it was Law and Order, maybe it was something else. But anyways, he was like, I just restarted it. And I was like, yeah, nope. I need like something mindless and happy.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
You know, like
I
Sitcoms.
can't
We
do that
watch
with
old
my husband doesn't watch movies, which drives me crazy. So like never wants to go to the movies with me. But like it's just sports. Sports are on
yeah.
always. And I just don't I feel like I ask questions like embarrass him. I'm like, like who's winning the goal? He's like, ha ha ha, thanks.
sitcoms.
But
Go sports.
yeah, but he does the
Fun.
same thing with me. He's like, okay, like Game of Thrones. I remember he was like, I'm not into this. And he's like, who's the redhead? What is happening? I'm like, you can't watch one of every fifth episode and then like want me to give you like you have to restart with me. So at least he kind of watched a few episodes with me. So, but sometimes that's like a leader where it's like you can't just like creep on certain things you want to pay attention to for like marketing online sales. You should probably be paying attention.
Yeah. And then do your research like I do when I get invested in something, then I IMDb it.
Yeah.
And so like
The
when
whole time.
yeah, the whole time, getting all the trivia, the fun facts, where it was filmed, when it was filmed, how
Same.
who's related to who, the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, all of that. And we need to figure out the 6 or 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon in our marketing.
There you go.
All right, let's get started. Welcome to episode 341. I'm Julie Jarnagin, and with me today is Jackie Lipinski and Beth
Hello.
Russell.
Hi, hi.
The dream team.
We're here back together again. I like this. This
I
is
know, me
always
too.
a fun one to do. Not that the
Me and
guys
my
aren't
two
fun.
blondes.
The guys are fun too, but feels like we're
But
just chatting.
well, it's fun too. And when we make the we have podcast editing notes, and then sometimes I'm like, okay, we're scratching all of that and we're doing whatever we want. So
Yeah, there's no rules when
there's
it's
no
just us.
rules, no parents allowed. So yeah, it's fun.
So who wants to start story time? Beth, you want to start?
Sure. So I have this weird obsession and love for negotiating with car dealerships. It's like a
Okay.
game. Maybe it's the fact that I'm a control freak. Maybe it's the spoiled brat in me that just doesn't like not getting what she wants. And maybe there's a deeper meaning behind all of it. Or it's just the fact that I love to prove them all wrong. I don't know. But it brings a lot of joy to my heart. And so I started looking at cars last weekend, just a little bit casually, because mine is like nearing the end of its life with me, but I'm obsessed with it. So it's like I kind of just want the next version of my car before I get the all electric version that's going to come out in a year or so. So I don't know. I just started looking. I went to a dealership. I was very kind to this guy. We bonded, loved him. His name was Nick. We had a great time. We were laughing with my daughter, who I always bring with me. And it was very clear, like I knew my stuff. I talked about like the deal I got on my previous one. This would be our third Volvo that we would purchase and all this stuff. Well, then like the negotiation starts and he sends over this deal. And I'm just like, do you think I'm stupid? Like I literally said that to him. And I remember like I emailed my husband and I was like, because I just like gave him an update and I was like, Volvo, joke offer. And I sent him like a very quick description. And then his reply back was, haha, he has no idea who he's dealing with. So then I went on this rampage, right? And I've now spoken with like 5 different dealerships in the area. I've literally searched every Volvo dealership in a tri-state area, gotten a much better deal offer with several of them. But I'm still in the early phases. And it got me thinking of like how your customer interaction in person can be completely ruined and you can break that trust you formulated when your follow-up is terrible, when you don't treat people with respect, and when you lack transparency. So we've had this conversation for years about the importance of transparency and clear and simple communication and how that really makes a difference. And that's what they completely lacked at the time frame, and with our further in-depth conversation. And I went from really enjoying him in person to never wanting to talk to him again. And then this other person that I spoke with at another dealership, she's like asking me what it is that I love about my current one and what are the features that I want to make sure I have in my next one. And she's getting a little bit deeper, like, what are my goals? What am I trying to do? And she's showing that flexibility from the get-go. The transparency is a lot more obvious, and the trust is being built virtually, not even in person, because they're 2.5 hours away from me, a lot stronger than the one I actually spent 2 hours with on the lot.
Do you feel like you'll purposefully go out of your way to never interact with that location again?
Historically, I have a tendency to do that. So unless I can use everything else I've gotten to better my deal or to convince them otherwise, yeah. And I'm not vindictive in my like personal life, but when it comes to dealerships, you don't want to mess with me. And I think that's hard because we're in this, as women in particular, we have been taught that we are taken advantage of at dealerships, and we feel it when we walk into a dealership and then our husband walks in and all of a sudden the attention changes. And my husband is the first to be like, no, you go talk to her because she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah. I went to Toyota when I was a youth and I was looking at a vehicle and the woman was so bad. I will now never own a Toyota because I felt like if that is someone you had to represent you who tried to trick me into signing a contract for the vehicle, I got up, yelled at this woman, and I left. And and I brought my dad. My dad was sitting by the thing, and I was just like, shame on you. And I left. Because but again, you have we understand what it's like to go through big purchases and not be treated fairly. And I think we also know like there are certain ways you need to act and have empower in that moment. And that guy was, I think, trying to see what he can get away with you, Beth. And you're just like, I make the rules.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm out. So
exactly. And I think like you have to, as salespeople too, because what we're seeing nationally right now is a lot of struggle at the bottom half of the funnel. Like they're getting the leads, they're not converting them very well to sale. And I'm a recovering salesperson, so I'm allowed to say all these things. But I think we forget like the importance of a human connection, the importance of trust, the importance of transparency, but then also like being able to read the room. Like we're having a conversation in person. My husband says, do you want them to give you a quote on your car? And I go, no, I want to do my research first. Like very clearly, like I'm going to be bringing that number. They're not going to be bringing it to me. And so for them to then turn around and like the offer was so bad. It was so bad. And then I replied with like, Volvos usually discount this percentage to this percentage on their vehicles and they're far off. And the guy was like, I don't know anything about that.
Sure, buddy.
Okay. Why are you here?
Have y'all read Never Split the Difference?
No, not yet. I know about it.
It's about negotiating. It's great. And it was so funny. Steve Shoemaker, my old boss, there you go, at Ideal Homes. He had just read it when we started negotiating with a vendor, nobody who's in the industry. It was a bigger vendor that's out lots of industries. And anyway, I would just start cracking up in the middle of the meeting because he would pull it straight out of the straight out of the book. He was testing out the book. So read the book, Beth, and just test it out on your next car and report back.
I will need to. It's so funny. During the process, I texted, my old builder that I worked at, Stylecraft, Rodrigo, who's the VP of sales there. He used to work in cars. And I texted him that I was going through this process. And he's like, oh no, they better get ready. I was like, I love you, buddy.
Watch out.
That's pretty funny.
Jackie, you ready for your story?
Yeah, it's funny. I saw yours, Beth, and I missed mine last week, the real story. So I was like, oh, I can bring it back. And also, if anyone listened to that, apologies. Yeah, my internet is a stinker. So my story though is my parents were selling their car. It was a 2008 Lincoln MKX. The kicker is that it had 240,000 miles on it. So, but my dad is a meticulous maintenance person. Like it's probably doing better than cars with 100,000 miles because of how well it takes care of it. And he just loved the car. So he tries to sell it for, I think it was like 3-4 months. And he's talking to me and he's like, oh, cause he already bought the new car. There's no urgency to sell this car. It's been paid off. And he's like, yeah, it's just been in the driveway with a for sale sign. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, our street, which gets just like 7 home traffic, like there's no traffic on this street. And my mom is a huge Facebooker. And I was like, well, I'll just have mom post it on her Facebook page and see what happens. 4 hours. It took 4 hours versus 4 months of just sitting in the driveway to sell the car for exactly what they were asking for. And so sometimes I feel like I feel like I'm going crazy when I'll talk even to a home builder marketer and I'm like, okay, well, what was your plan to sell that inventory home? And they're like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean? What do I mean? Like, what's the individual game plan now that we're at this stage? And they're like, I just thought the people would come. It's like, well, the people aren't coming. You have to get some promotion. You have to create awareness. And so I felt like a silly little wizard. Like, I was like, of course it took 4 hours. Like, it was a good price. It's not that bad of a car. And you had to get that there. So I just thought it was funny. Like, even certain people very close and dear to your hearts, like wait to the last minute to take your advice. And then it works. And then you're like, I get to hold this over their head forever. So
that's the best part of the whole thing.
That's the
your
best
little
part.
Like digital marketing wizard wand.
It's not that hard. And there's things where I feel like people are like, oh, that takes a little extra effort. I'm like, does it really? Like, is the pain going to be the extra month that you're paying the insurance on the house or the car or whatever you're trying to sell? Or is it just going to take like an extra 10 minutes of your time to create a process about getting it sold? So anyway, loved that. And I saw your car thing, Beth, and I was like, I'm going to bring the car story back. So Julie, no pressure, but it has to involve a car. Go.
It doesn't involve a car, but it involves what Beth was talking about earlier. So y'all know I love Anne Handley, who is like a marketer, writer. I talk about her all the time. But just in her latest newsletter, she was talking about everybody's wondering what's going to happen with all these AI changes, what's going to happen with all the SEO changes, and Google's different, and what do we do? And one of her lines, and when she was talking about this, was that your from line in an email. So if you send an email, your from line matters more now than your subject line. And that's so true. And that's what you're talking about. Like, if that dealership sent you an email with such a, great incentive or a great, catchy subject line, that doesn't matter now because of who it's from, because of the from line. And I think a lot of times during, when things are a little bit quieter this time of year or in the market, we think, well, we don't have time to worry about that's more branding and those things, but it matters just as much right now as any time. And it matters who you hire, who you have working for you. It matters what your messaging is on content. And it's like, if you're not thinking about those things all the time, you're not thinking about what's in the from line. Like, it's no more, we can't just base things off clickbait and this incentive. Like, you have to get a You have to get a name out there.
It's the credibility. And I think for my Toyota person that I will never buy a Toyota, and your person, Beth, from Volvo, like I feel like these people are thinking as individuals and not thinking that they're part of the company brand. And they're thinking individually and not like long-term success. And I think that's also the disconnect that happens because people forget you're representing the brand everywhere you go. You know, if you see someone do something in the news, like, and then they have a work shirt, like obviously that pings the company itself too. So I think I love that, Julie. I feel like that's something that people need to focus on when they do bad marketing or miscellaneous things or odd things that represent their company. Like there's a bigger picture you need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, and the details matter. Like that's at the end of the day, especially in a market like this that's becoming a little bit slower, a little bit more competitive. You know, you have resale coming back at the heels. It's details matter. Every single little detail matters. The guy did email me, Julie. He emailed me. I opened that email. The email was, "Hey, sorry we couldn't make something happen, but I hope if you think of me next time. P.S. I hope you enjoy your new ride." And I was like, I never purchased any, like you clearly put me in the wrong bucket of your CRM.
Yeah.
And you did not preview this email. Like it's not those little details. They really truly do make a difference. And I think we've sort of lost sight of that. And I think as a marketing department, where we see that impact the most is when we have anemic marketing departments, where there's a lot of pressure on the department as a whole, but a lack of understanding of the man hours and talent and just time and emphasis put into that department. And they're anemic. They have one or two people working and trying to sell 30, 40, 50 communities. And it's just, you lose, the details are lost when that happens.
There's a lot of things that are not their fault, but become their problem. And we always say that too, where it's like, okay, that happened, not our fault, but is our problem. And now marketing somehow needs to overcome that. And I think, we think about these bad reviews. And I know Kevin in the past has talked about like, he'd have to put 5, 10K into a marketing bucket every time they get a bad review. Cause like, that's how loud we have to shout now when something like that comes in, because that is our brand and that is how people know us. And if we're not responsive and proactive about how people are take us in and are impressed and associate us as like having value or not value, that is something that's worth evaluating, and unfortunately sometimes falls under marketing. So
yeah,
to solve the other problems. Yep.
And on to the news. The news is that we don't have any news today because, like Jackie said, we break all the rules when it's just us. So
hijacked it.
Instead, we love viewer questions, and we got a viewer question this time. And this time it says, "I'd love to hear you guys talk about boots on the ground marketing and corporate marketing in newer markets." So this was fascinating, and it definitely fits some of the builders I've worked with recently. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think about boots on the ground in corporate markets and in newer markets.
So yeah, before you jumped on, even Beth and I were kind of just like, well, we joke like everything can fall under marketing. What does this mean? Who's involved? So I think to define boots on the ground, what does that mean, I guess, to you and Julie and Beth? That's separate from what marketing normally does, obviously digital marketing, but is there any way you'd define that so for the audience?
Yeah. So from my point of view, especially in an anemic marketing department, like we just discussed, boots on the ground marketing, I like to call it guerrilla marketing. It's, you are in the trenches, you are, working through the tough desert or tough terrain, trying to figure out how you can survive. And really, boots on the ground marketing is about building relationships. It's something that we cannot truly do in a tangible way from this side of the screen. And so it really, one of the questions that we proposed, Jackie, you and I, was who is responsible? I think you need to define who is responsible for your boots on the ground marketing and then start defining the tasks involved in that. And I think there should be both things at play. So one, salespeople, on the ground salespeople need to be responsible for the execution. They need to be building those relationships. They need to be contacting their realtors, creating lunches, lunch and learns, working with their mortgage lenders, getting out into the communities, doing community events, that sort of thing. But it needs to be somewhat steered, that the ship itself needs to be steered and influenced by marketing. So that way we have a pulse on what it is that they're putting out there for our brand, because we are the brand protectors. Just like you were saying previously of, it's all encompassing. And so if they're out there misrepresenting us or slapping our logo on things that we don't have approval of, like, that's not good. But there needs to be, like, they are the relationship builders. They are the ones that are building that trust face to face and have a tangible relationship. And they really need to be out there doing the events, working with the realtors, and being the face associated with the brand.
So one thing that also, I'll kind of jump ahead a little bit regarding that and how to apply it to moving into a new market. I have a builder who's moving into a new market, and they're like, well, what does that mean? And how do we build up those relationships? And the real estate agents locally kind of have these like bubbles, and how do we get in that? And I was like, well, people also really like, marketing doesn't have to come up with all of the solutions and, just like, okay, here's the 10 things we have to do, and that's it. Just like in the book, I think it's How to Make Friends and Influence Others, it talks about like, ask people, talk to people, get their opinions. So if you know that there's a niche, whatever it is, agents, and they're high performing agents, have an event with them and say, we're coming to this area. We want to make a good first impression. We want to make a good first impression with you. We want to make a good impression. How can we help you succeed and help us succeed? And what can we do to educate you, educate our buyers, and make sure we're having a seamless process? You can obviously talk about your online sales program, real estate agent, kind of concierge service. But I think just being like, if something locally is important to those people, one marketer, they're like, do we sponsor baseball teams? I'm like, you should talk to the local agents. Are you finding that teachers are buying your houses? Like, is that the feedback you're getting from the real estate agents? And how do you capitalize and utilize that information to succeed? And how do we, is there some sort of scholarship? Is there some way we can get our roots in the ground and show that we're here to support local, and we're not going anywhere? And I thought that was a really good way to introduce yourselves to very new markets, because again, a lot of marketers, I think I mentioned this last podcast, they put these blinders on and they're like, everyone knows who we are. Assume nobody knows who you are. And you have to restart your brand from scratch when you go into these new markets. So building those relationships faster, I think, will only help you succeed in the long run.
Yeah. And even if they know who you are, you're coming in as an outsider. Especially some of these, a lot of times it can even be a smaller market. I can think of one in particular that's even a small. So it's like the people from the larger city coming into this smaller market. And even if they know who you are, they're skeptical. So it's the thought of, how do we establish ourselves as we're locals and supporters of your local community? And I've seen some good ways for people to do that. Sometimes it's getting together with those high performing realtors and doing a bunch of local content. These are the best coffee shops. These are the best things. Getting involved in local organizations, all these things. On a higher corporate level, yeah, we have to do the basics, like get it on the website. When do we need to start running ads and running interest lists? That's more of the corporate marketing. When are we going to roll all these different tools and ads and on our website? How are we going to position it? But you do need that somebody on the ground helping you figure out what's important to these people, where enough ahead of time that you can build up that trust.
That is such a good point. And I think I've shared this story before, but I'll reiterate it for this purpose. But we had a community when I was at my old builder, and it was a struggle for us. It was a small town, like you said, Julie, completely new market for us. It was a solid like 2-3 hours away from our like the local, or I'm sorry, the closest community that we were already building in. So very new, very rural. And we went into it and we had this new product and we were all excited. And it was so slow to move. And after a while, what we realized is they just didn't want us there. Like at the end
Oh,
of the day, they just did not want us there. And so it didn't matter that from like a competitive analysis
yeah.
standpoint, we fit in the market perfectly. We had a great product. It was just that they didn't want that type of product there. And it took a long time for a one street community. It was a one street, maybe like 40 homes. And it took forever and so much money to overcome that. And I, like you said, both of you, of, doing that research beforehand, establishing the trust beforehand, introducing yourself beforehand. If I could go back and get more time for that community, that's what I would do. I would go back and invest more into the lead up and invest more into the learning stage of it. And, I've been preaching this for a while. I think that's my biggest learning lesson that I had leaving the seat was we just don't, as a whole in our industry, do enough beforehand. I wrote an article about it based off of my experience
Yeah.
in pharmaceutical market research that's on our website. But it's just like you have one chance. We have one chance at this, and we just don't put enough effort in the front end to make sure that it's successful.
We did a community where it was going to be a larger community in an area that we hadn't built in before. And we had a great amount of interest. And so I, being the marketer, wasn't asked, but I was like, hey, I'm going to be doing a survey. We're really in the early process of the floor plans. So I want to do a survey. And in the survey, I'm going to say, what are you thinking for price point, but also like, what are you looking for in a home? And then knowing our floor plans, we always had a dedicated dining room area. And to me, it was kind of, it was kind of feeling dated and how the floor plans were laid out. And we were thinking about some new plans. So, I asked how important is a dedicated dining room area to you? And then also at the end, and then with all your requirements too, what are you expecting your investment level of a property like this to be? And the biggest feedback we got is no one on our interest list wanted these dedicated floor plan dining room spaces. And you know what happened? Boop, survey went in the garbage. Like almost none of the feedback was applied. And you know where we struggled? This community, with the feedback being like, this floor plan. And then when we did struggle, one thing though we did do that I really enjoyed is about halfway through the construction of this project, we had a neighborhood event. We hosted in the model home like a block party for current residents. And it was a meet your event. We had a camera where we just did a bunch of testimonials then to correct, we're not going into each individual home, one location. Let's film it. And then also you can invite potential people. And so, and that's what we've actually been recommending to certain people who are like, I'm thinking about more events. And it's about a halfway through project. What are some ideas? It's like, well, what about a meet your neighbor event? What are some ways we can, as long as we know it's going to be a good experience, like we can branch those relationships and build them further, because those are, again, not going to be things you can see on an Excel sheet. These are things you have to go, let's try this. Let's think about this and let's get out of our computer and our offices to try something that might or might not work. But how do we, if we're talking about who's responsible, like let's talk to our customer service team who have walked these plans with people and say too, like, is there someone who could be an ambassador for this community? Is there someone who's passionate about living here? Is there someone where the sales team needs a little assistance, having a conversation about why it's great to live here? That those are all very nice opportunities too, to have discussions around.
Yeah, one of the things of when we bought our house in Maryland that happened is that the HOA had a welcoming committee.
Love that.
And neighbors came to our house, and one of the neighbors actually was the first owner of our house. And like we talked about its evolution, all the changes that we just made to it before moving in. And I think something like that, like you said, ambassador wise, can be incredibly powerful and welcoming. And, we've talked a lot about Billy on the street style testimonials, like people are setting up coffee trucks in neighborhoods and no one's coming by. Well, You got to get to the right people. Don't market to new people. Market to the people already living there. Tell them to invite their friends. Coffee's on you guys, and then have someone there ready to interview them. What do you love about living here? What do you love about your home? What's the best part? Like, where do you go? What's your favorite restaurant nearby? Like, start just having those like real authentic conversations. And that will help you stand out in this market over the next coming months for sure.
There was a marketer who passed away. I can't remember her name, whatever. Sorry, specific marketer. But for Alka-Seltzer, she created the plop, plop, fizz, fizz marketing strategy, which you really only need one. But with that suggestion, people take two. And so whenever I would do invitations for open houses or whatever, I'm like, okay, and feel free to bring your friends and family. Like, not required, but bring someone with you. Like, oh, so if you're having an event too, you can be like, oh, and we can't wait for you, like bring your friends, like get more people, make it obvious that this is not something you should come alone to, because we also, again, that's a grassroots marketing, is like, bring a friend, let's start something great and let's build it together. Yeah. And one of the things you said about the ambassador program, I think it was Sam on my team, our team said there was one community she worked in, and like the first 10 people got like a bicycle and like swag. And it was like they were the OG residents, and it made them feel really special too. So like that rewarding
I want a bike.
And then you have people riding around on cute bikes.
I know.
And then people are like, how do I get the bikes? And then they have to reach out to the builder.
Like some Novi Home shoes. How do you get the bike?
Novi Home's gonna have bicycles, and they're gonna blame us next.
I know. Sorry, Cody.
Sorry, guys.
I think there's a developer in North Carolina who their marketer is just phenomenal. There's a lot of intent behind his marketing. And in one of their new developments, he came up with like a logo, and they're just kind of like a mascot for this high-end community. But the mascot is carrying a tote with a baguette. And everyone who signs a contract, or when they close on their home, gets a tote with a baguette from the local bakery.
I like that.
And it's just like tying in little pieces in that bespoke experience, that we've been talking about. And I love that idea. Mercedes does the same thing for my neighborhood, Jackie, where again, going to it is a guerrilla marketing. It is a guerrilla marketing tactic. But every year when they rent to people, or they rent people's homes in my neighborhood, and it's rented by Mercedes, they then give them an invitation that they can extend to another family, and they can choose one other family to then have come to this event with Mercedes-Benz. Then Mercedes will look at your house and give you an offer on your house for renting for the masters. And that's how they just accumulate more and more houses in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I think marketers can sometimes overcomplicate it. And again, sometimes it's like, just lean into the audience you already have. And also make sure sales is like the leads in this and what you're doing. Like everything can't be 100% corporate. Like it has to come at least 30% of leads and ideas from sales teams. So leaning into them, getting their feedback, I think works. And then I also wanted to say, just like my story about my parents in their car, if you have an event, you have to tell people. So that's, I know, shocking. I had a meeting. I won't spoil it, but they were like, oh, we launched a community. I was like, how'd it go? They're like, oops, we forgot to tell people. I'm like, what do you mean you forgot to tell people? They're like, we just changed it on our website. And I'm like, that's not good enough. Like that is not good enough. So remember, like, clear is kind, tell everyone, over communicate with your team, get people pumped. And I think that's
wait, I have a question to follow up that.
Oh,
Julie.
gosh.
Yeah.
Does the event need a gimmick?
No. Please, no. The event doesn't need a gimmick. Sometimes
a theme.
It doesn't need a theme.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't need face painting. Doesn't need balloons.
Well, and I want to go back to what you said, Jackie, about how much comes from corporate and how much comes from who's on site, because sometimes there can be some tension there. because sometimes if just the person you're dealing with on site is an on-site salesperson who's like, let's just do this outlandish thing, and marketing then just shuts things down, if that just starts it off not well. So it just needs to be when, if somebody on site comes to you with these ideas or this event, your role as a marketer is to be like, okay, let's step back. What's our goal? How's this going to get us closer to our goal? What are the deliverables? What can we, just to guide them on that path? Because both then they have buy-in and excitement over the event or the whatever they're wanting to do. But then marketing, you need to provide that strategy behind it. And yeah, sometimes it could be just not a good idea, but sometimes it's an idea that just needs a little marketing.
Yeah.
Like we need to wrap it up where it's actually helping us meet our goals. So I do think that's really important, that the marketer in corporate or wherever it is, if you're a smaller builder, it's just, your main office and then who's out in the fields. Corporate branches might have marketing people out in the fields, but there's gotta be good communication and buy-in from both ends, or you're just not going to have the success.
It's like companies who let I don't know what company it was, but it was like, they'll let anyone have a meeting with the CEO to shoot ideas for the company of like how to do better or make more money. So like, you can also have marketing power hour once every quarter where it's like, hey, if anyone wants to talk to me about ideas that they think could sell more homes, like let's have an open discussion. I would love suggestions, and being open to suggestions and not just being like, if you say no, obviously there's going to be a lot of tension. Most of them might be no's, but there are sometimes good ideas behind the bad ideas if you can see what the point is that we're trying to get across. I once suggested a very bad idea when I worked at an old company. We were in the middle of Frankfort, Illinois, where, if anyone knows, there's not a lot going on. We worked with these large companies. I was like, how do we bring more people in, and how do we get people to stop at our store? I was like, what if we team up with Husqvarna or another large chainsaw company, because it was a power equipment company, and we try to do a Guinness World Record biggest X, and it becomes a landmark thing. And everyone went, please sit down. But I still always like that idea of what can we do to draw people to a location, and there might be something that comes out. And I think eventually we got like the world's best chainsaw artist at the event. What is ended up coming out of it? But it ended up being like, sometimes you have to shoot weird ideas out to get to the real thing that would draw people in. So
I'm having flashbacks of all the questions we got when Pokemon Go was a thing.
Oh my God. Yeah. I like questions.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing this week was like, I did role playing with a marketer and I pretended to be their boss. And I just asked them all the questions that I thought might come up, because that was a great exercise of like, sometimes you're going to get asked weird questions. So like, how do we talk about this? And she was able to explain like, no, that's not a good strategy because of this. And I was like, okay, like you have passed this test. And I love it. So thank you. But yeah, sometimes, those are very interesting ways to approach marketing, and there's a lot of investment in time. That's like TikTok, where like you can do whatever you want, just make sure you're analyzing how much time is there. And if you're a one marketer team, it cannot be priority. You have to sell homes. So, but you can do it, but prioritize. Was there anything else, I guess, regarding the corporate? You guys had ideas for corporate marketing in newer markets, or I'll give another suggestion actually really quick, of a builder who's thinking about moving to an area. And they were like, well, how do we talk about that? And what do we say? And it could be, if we're thinking about moving there, like, could we create ads saying like new homes being built around this area? Are you interested? Join our interest list. Then we can see, if we have two areas, are we collecting leads in one area more than the other? Like to help our land development team, like make a decision. Like that could also be super helpful. And then surveying those people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We combine that. We're possibly building in this area. We'd love it if you replied to our survey and had a survey. And that way you were getting feedback on what people were interested in that area. So
yeah,
paid ad.
And again, if we're thinking of the leads, I use this analogy today and I'm going to use it forever now, I think, if we're thinking of leads as coins, if this one had 50 coins and this one had 100 coins, but these are quarters and these are pennies, there could be a difference. So by surveying them and saying, what would you think a home like this would cost? That can say, okay, there's certain people who can actually afford it or not afford it. So keeping that in mind with qualified leads that you might be collecting is valuable too. And to break that down so that the leader isn't going, oh, okay, 100. It's like, no. The smaller one actually has better quality. And that could be potentially, you build the story as the marketer of why that's more valuable.
Yeah. And do your competitive analysis too. Like that, I think that's probably a given, but just in case, that needs to be done ahead of time. Your new home competitors and even existing homes, what things they're selling for, what kind of products people are used to. Brand new products are scary for people from a brand new company. So just make sure you're doing, your company's doing the research first.
And one thing that I think that we forget in our competitive analysis is, how is your competitor marketing? What kind of content are they seeing? What kind of content are they interacting with? And how can you stand out amongst the pack? What can you add? What's missing? What would wow them? So add that into your CMAs from now on. That'd be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I've seen that. And then I had a builder call recently where it was, they were actually doing really great for sales. And they're like, oh, our competitor has all these incentives, but they were outselling the competitor. The competitor started 50 grand high and they're saying you can have 40 grand off. And this builder was doing 10 grand off, but getting more sales. And I'm like, okay, so they overpriced the homes. That's a them problem. Like that works out for you. So make sure you're tracking that, because what you don't want is them to have started low and then doing this, but they started high and now they're having to backpedal. And that's really hard to come back from as a marketer launching that, starting at community price wrong. So yay for my builder.
All right. This was fun. Are we ready for current favorites or hates? Things. What are your favorite or most disdainful things in the world right now? Is how it's phrased.
The word disdainful just makes me smile every time.
Disdainful.
Because it's so extreme.
Well, I love he's like, not hate, but like loathe. Like, what do you, what, like, we can't say hate, but every other word is okay.
Like the Grinch.
The Grinch.
Yeah, right? I feel very Grinchy right now. I'm going to share my Grinch moment.
Yeah, what's your Grinch?
So my husband and I are both like in need of new phones. Mine, that's just the screen protector. That's fine. But my camera on the back has been broken forever. So I can't do a full zoom. And that's really embarrassing from someone who's a marketer, but also a mom who takes pictures of her children at all times. So like both of us needed new phones and my husband's was like super outdated. And so I looked one day, added both to cart. Mine would have been like, I don't know, like $8 a month, but my husband's was going to, for a lower model phone, was going to be like much higher. So I was like, okay, I'll hold off, because it's like airline tickets. It changes every day. And so a week later I checked and my husband's came down tremendously and I was like, add to cart, go, we're great. But then mine shot back up. And so now like his is replaced and I'm still, and it keeps emailing me like, don't forget this phone. And I'm like, no, because you shot that price back up. So now the stubborn me circling back to the first part of the story is like, I'm not buying till I get a good deal. So no one judge me if they see me still in October at the summit with a cracked lens on her phone.
I feel like this is where you take your negotiation level to the next level and you go in person and you're going to be like, have a screenshot of the old price and be like, I did my research. Give me.
I wish I don't think I took a screenshot. Unfortunately, that was my bad. But also, what is worse, like the DMV and an in-person visit to the phone network store? No,
I think it's because, they have no power. They can't really do anything for you.
No, they end up calling customer service that you could call on your own in the comfort of your own bed in my pajamas. I will always choose pajamas.
Where we threatened to record our podcast today. All from.
I was like, maybe the pool. Maybe
Maybe
Ben.
the co-op. Yeah. Next time we'll do guest locations. We're going to disdain, loathing. If you listen to the last podcast and I just go missing halfway through, you'll know that I loathe Xfinity now. It was good. What happened also is that, we're having outages. What's going on? Our neighbors started texting us. Our other neighbors started texting us. It's a neighborhood thing. Did they update? Did they email everyone to give them an update that they're like changing things? Nope. They're just having people suffer and like lose internet every hour for 2 minutes. So it's driving me so bananas. I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to try AT&T Air Wi-Fi only. If anyone listening to this has tried this and goes, oh gosh, don't do that, please let me know. But I think that anything is better than what I have been dealing with, where I just lose internet for 2 minutes at a time. It's incredibly frustrating. And I think that too is like, it's just hindering my relationship with that company that I've had for 10 years. And now it's just been so bad. I'm like, I never want to work with you again, because we've had 4 people out. No one can diagnose the problem. They said it was like not just us. And we're like, it is just us, but also you stink on our block. So I'll let you know if my disdain next week is AT&T Wi-Fi Air.
Yeah. Keep us updated.
Will do.
Yeah, mine's just cheesy today. I don't have a disdain. I just have and we try not to like, we never sell on this podcast, but our team, just if everybody knew behind the scenes how hard everybody works and problem solves, and this is a pain point for this builder, and there's like multiple different people in on conversations on how do we solve this and coming up with solutions and doing things. It is just so fun to watch. And so I've just been really like happy with our team. Just such a good group of smart people who are all working so hard for builders and the industry and doing good things. So
we're hiring 2 new roles, and it's hard to explain to them like, okay, but do you love home building? Like, yeah, it's a great job. No. Do you like, how much do you love this? Because we had a team meeting today, and we are just like, the amount of nerdy love for our builder partners is like,
right.
Like we're cheesy when we're like, yeah, this builder did it. Like, oh, we won here and we got this and we were able to fix this for them. So we definitely love our builder partners. So yeah, not upselling. We love you guys if you're listening.
They're pretty great.
And if anybody else we love getting builder questions like that or builder topics for us to discuss. So keep sending them our way. I think somebody may have just emailed that one to Kevin. So
yeah, you can just email. It's show@doyouconvert.com. And that just goes to, there. And we've seen it in the past. 1, we didn't name this person. 2, sometimes people are like, hey, I'm having a discussion with the owner of my company, and I would love for you to have a roundtable discussion about it, so that this is not just coming from me, or like, I'm thinking that this is the point I want to make, but like, how can we make leadership understand it better? So if there's any wins you're looking for, or if you're like, is everyone else a sales? Like, if there are certain things you want nationally acknowledged, let us know, because we obviously love answering those questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Should we read the outro, or do we do it automatically?
We'll try.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to become a member for free of DYC's All Access Community app for home builders and developers. Watch behind the scenes videos from the podcast, frequent exclusive postings and analysis from the DYC team, access to private hangouts, and more. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.